December 17th, 1991. Crystal, the trumpet alarm came today. I took the liberty of opening it and reading it. I hope you don't mind. Not at all, Kelly. I'm glad you finally found an interest in reading them. What did you think? I think Jasper's perfect for you. Did you write to him yet? Yes, on the 14th. Did you send him a picture of yourself? Yes, I did, but not for the reason you were thinking. I sent him a picture of you and Dan as well, so he would know what my whole family looks like. Good thinking. Kelly began to hope that maybe Crystal was going to cooperate after all, and by July 24th, 1992, the date she and Dan planned to get married, Kelly's dream would come true, that being to have a double wedding with Crystal. Surely there was enough time between now and then for Jasper to come to his senses and realize Crystal was as good a choice as he was ever going to find. Kelly began to wonder what Crystal had written to him, and had she known the contents, she might not have been so self-assured that her dream was going to come true after all. Here is what Crystal wrote. Dear Jasper, I like the way you introduce yourself. You can bore me like that any time. Your letter was most refreshing and could not have come at a better time. They say that everything comes in threes. Well, on December 12th, 3 events happened from which I still am trying to recover. That day started by my having an argument with my younger sister, Kelly. Kelly hopes to get married on July 24th, 1992, to her longtime boyfriend, and whose name is Daniel Corrett. Since Kelly has a boyfriend and I do not, she cannot understand why I am content to want to stay single. She says I'm too fussy and will never find the man for whom I'm looking. Kelly and Dan are Christians, but they are not as spiritually inclined as I would like them to be. Kelly has not been interested in what Pilgrimage is doing until recently. I have been praying for quite some time that she would become interested, and I hope this glimmer of interest is the Lord finally being able to get through to her, and this will also be the case for Dan before they get married. I would hate for her to make a big mistake and regret it the rest of her life, like Bertha does. The next troublesome event that happened to me on December 12th was at work. My boss, Peter Hart, falsely accused me of doing something that was not my fault. I'm still not sure he believed me when I told him I did not do what he thinks I did. I don't like people not believing that I tell them the truth, but I don't know how to prove to Peter that I'm not lying to him, for I have no witnesses to back me up. I just have to leave everything in the Lord's hands, as he knows the truth, but I'm very heavy at heart over it, for Peter and I have such a good working relationship that I would hate to have anything ruin that relationship. Remember I started this letter with everything comes in threes? Well, when I came home, Kelly informed me that I received a package, and in my state of mind, the thought flashed as I was opening it, first Kelly, then Peter, now what? I pulled out your letter, read, Dear Crystal, please let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Jasper White. I stopped, looked at the return address on the envelope, and instantly knew number 3 was nothing like number 1 and 2 that day had dished out to me already. Boy, was I right. As I read your letter, your sense of humor was the best medicine the Lord could have ever sent me, and he also knew that at this time in my life, I needed someone who truly understands how I feel. Jasper, I don't know how much Mr. Robinson's girls told you about what I wrote to them, but from your letter, they must have told you I was interested in a man by the name of David Armstrong. And prior to this day, I had been battling with how foolish I'd been and how easily I could fall into an emotional trap. Luckily for me, it was all one-sided, and David finally owned up he had been just picking my brain for what I believed and why I believed it. I was glad he eventually was honest and upfront. We are still good pals, but the day after I got your letter, I looked at him and wondered what I ever saw in him. We had nothing in common with regard to what I think is important. Like Bertha, David works at a bank too. As part of my office duties, I make the deposits every day, and David is the commercial teller I deal with. It was my own fault how I got tied up with him, but I thought it was the Christian thing to do at the time. You see, his car was in the shop and I drove him home. That same day, he had asked me what I was reading, and at that time, I was working on Great Pyramid Proof of God. It seemed to pique his interest, so he asked to get together with me so we could discuss it at our leisure. I had quite a few sessions with him, and I really thought we were getting somewhere, but all of a sudden, he told me he didn't want to date me anymore. I wasn't sure I was dating him in the first place, but I was glad to find out he was not interested in me in that way after all. Kelly seemed more disappointed in my breaking up with David than I was, and she was the one who coerced me to write Mr. Robinson's Girls to find out if Alexander King would be interested in corresponding with me. I found out about Alex King's age and that he was unmarried during my visit to Pilgrimage in September. When I inquired further about him in November, and the answer to that letter was so vague, Kelly was more disappointed than I was. I, like you, Jasper, was beginning to think the Lord had other plans in mind for my life than getting married. I hope you don't mind. I gave your letter to Kelly to read. When you mentioned how important the kingdom message was in your life, I thought if Kelly read it, the Lord might use it to plant another seed, and eventually Kelly would wake up to her responsibility as one of God's chosen people. I am shy by nature, though firm in my convictions, and your letter convinced me I should be doing more for the Lord than I am. Jasper, I would like to write to you, as I can see I can learn a lot from you. I only met Mr. Robinson in person twice, and sometime I'll write you about it, but I can see you must have had a relationship with him I could only dream of. I'm sure glad I met his girls before he died, for I miss having him around to consult, and I think that is why I let Kelly talk me into contacting Alexander King. I needed to know that there was someone around who felt as strongly as I do about the truth. I guess I'm like Elijah. When I get discouraged, it is nice to know I'm not alone. When I was told there was another young man that was writing December's trumpet alarm, but they mentioned nothing about my request, I decided to wait for the December's trumpet alarm, and in the meantime try and not to let no news get my curiosity. Based on your letter, I now understand they did not know themselves if Alexander King would write to me or not. I really felt bad using them as a go-between. They are precious, and I'm sure you will be talking to them before I do, so please give them my love. I don't quite know how to sign off from there, for there is so much I'd like to tell you, but at the same time, I wonder what you might think of me already. My main reason for writing this book to you, which I could title A Day in the Life of Crystal Matthews, is I wanted you to grasp how much your letter meant to me, and a friend who shares the same interest in God's truth and is willing to live for the Lord despite the hassle is the best gift I could get for Christmas this year. In his love, Crystal. P.S. The pictures are for you to keep. I thought you would like to have faces to go with the names of the people I mentioned in my letter.